Danish deception. The only thing deceptive is how the hell y'all taking all these trips. There's a trip in every part, a trip or two, in fact. Monaco, Paris, Broken Bow, Cartagena. What? Where y'all getting all this money from? Ain't now dollar in his account, but yet y'all catching flights. 34 cents in the account, but you in a villa somewhere. Catching flights and fraud charges, flights and tax bills. And you just soaking it up, believing every minute of it. And Crypto and Cryptisha, they better than me, because you'd have been hearing from my lawyer. How you catching all these flights and you owe me bread, 200 bands? And you in a villa, feet up? I ain't gonna lie, once somebody start having too many troubles, I'd be like, okay, you just... I ain't trying to have you rub off on me. Your daddy got cancer, your mama back broke, your back hurting, you done lost all your money, you getting this coming through, insurance bill. No, you got too much going on right now. You need to figure that out. I don't want your woes to rub off on me. I'ma go on about my business.
About $300,000 is how much Bachelor Anam Onyeka is saying that she, her family, her closest friends, and even a colleague were all scammed out of by one man. Man she once believed was her soulmate. His name? Martin Fursgaard Anderson. A charming blonde 6'3" real estate mogul who claimed he had royal ties, a booming tech business, and wealth that would one day be theirs to share. Instead, Onyeka was left with years of trauma and coming to TikTok to tell her story, which she calls the Danish Deception. It's a 26-part story, which she says began in June of 2022 when she decided to take a trip with her friend to Croatia. It was at a beach club when she noticed Martin immediately, and that was when he decided to approach her. He was confident, their chemistry was magnetic, and there was an instant spark. They exchanged social media, and she saw him one more time before returning to the US, but it wasn't the last time she heard from him. He messaged her constantly, invited her to come party with him in Ibiza, and then eventually convinced her to join him for a work trip in Monaco. After a month of talking over the phone, she agreed and he flew her out, paid for the hotel and her flight. In Monaco, he was everything he had promised, charismatic, adored, and effortlessly networking in real estate circles. After that, he whisked her to Saint-Tropez, paid for a $2,000 a night hotel, and offered to buy her whatever she wanted. She said she never wanted him to think that she was only there for his money, so she didn't let him buy her all these extravagant gifts. Instead, she opted for a $200 sunglasses. She fell hard for the first time in her life, telling him over a loud dinner that she was in love with him. Nights later, she collapses in a restaurant on the way to the bathroom and is eventually taken to the hospital, to which at that point he tells her he's falling in love with her too. Back home, the romance intensifies. He meets her friends, her family, and he fits right in. He flies to see her often, and then money requests begin. There are so many details to this story, but at some point he convinces her that he's buying properties, his money is tied up, that the IRS has a hold on not only his personal, but his business account. He lent him $6,000, then more and more. All while planning a life together in the US, they get married, he's applying for a visa, and eventually gets a green card. At this point, the cracks are forming. She's visiting his family in Denmark, and things aren't matching what he's telling her. After getting married, she finds out from his friend that he has a severe gambling addiction, one that he's been battling for over a decade. She later finds out that he had borrowed $200,000 from her friend's husband that he hadn't paid back. Relationship is going up and down. He convinces her that that's in the past, and later she finds out that he has been borrowing money from a lot of people in her life. Tens of thousands of dollars from one person to another, $3,000 from her little sister. Every loan came with its own set of lies. Every time she would confront him, there were so many excuses until one day he had no excuse left to give, and so he asked for a divorce. Only when he left did she realize the magnitude of it all, from exes to cheating to gambling to lies to manipulation. She is now sharing her story, and while she did not give his name or his photos, the internet did its thing, and I decided to share it as well because people need to know about this man. There's of course so much more that I left out, and I highly recommend watching this 26-part, which I did tag in my captions.
Guys, I just finished watching The Danish Deception. I'm completely done. And I have a hot take. Well, it's not really a hot take, but this is the one instance where gossiping would have prevented a lot of this. If people would have just spoken to one another and maybe spoken about her behind her back and been like, what the hell, why is she with him? They would have all realized that he's conning all of them. This is the one instance where gossip could have actually been positive, extremely. It would have saved them a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of hurt. She has really good friends, genuinely, because no one was talking about her behind her back to each other. go, guys.
That was easily 40K in flights alone. They were on a trip in 90% of that 25-part series. I know that's besides the point, but my God. The series had me in a chokehold. That shit had me locked in. They say our attention spans are compromised. No, that shit was an emotional roller coaster ride. I laughed, I cried, I judged her, I empathized with her. I was angry, I was disgusted, I felt all the things. The one part I laughed is when one of the guys that were scammed was like, well, you're Nigerian, and y'all are known to be scammers, so I didn't know whether you were in on it. And instead of being insulted, she's like, you know, it is crazy that he was able to pull one over on Nigerians. You're right. It shouldn't even cross her mind to be offended. Anyways, I've seen pictures of him and he is attractive. At least there's that, for real. Because if it were to come out that he actually wasn't fine, then I'd be pissed at Anika. And honestly, your first love, it really is like a drug. You lose all common sense. I remember my first love and I were ready to risk it all, but to be fair, we were in high school. We didn't have the agency or the bank accounts to make such expensive decisions. Damn, let me get back to my life.
For those who keep on saying if that was a black man, she wouldn't have been tricked, please stop, because black men bamboozle women every single day. They trick women of all races, and statistically, if we're being real. That's not me caping for a white man, because you should know me by now. I don't cape for no man. But let's talk about it. So I did not watch all the parts of the series. I just saw the first one, and I stopped because my blood pressure was rising every single time she did something really dumb. And that is not me victim blaming. You can hold yourself accountable for actions that could have been, the first and only sign she needed to know that he was not meant to be in her life was the fact that he saw her, approached her, talked to her, and then left her. And then she had to chase him an hour later before she left the venue to ask for his Instagram. As a woman, if that man wanted me in his life, he would have made sure he got my contact before he left me. That just means she didn't leave a good impression on him. He was okay with the risk of never seeing her or talking to her again because he did not care. But here's the trick. Now when you go after that man and ask him for his contact, in his head, he is the prize. And you're a loser. I don't make the rules. This is just the psychology of men in order. The fact that you had to ask him for his contact and he didn't want to ask you, that the ball's in his court. Now he sees you as a desperate dummy. He's going to play games with you. The whole relationship is going to play games with you.
The Danish Deception series has taught me that I am not wife material, and I'm also not one to be swindled. Because how do I find out that you have a gambling addiction and you asked my homegirl's husband for close to 200K American USD behind my back that you still owe him, and I'm taking care of that debt for you because we're married? See, the way that if I found that out and I was going to stay in the marriage, the way I would be like, so let me know when that's taken care of. Let me know when it's paid. That's not my problem. Through sickness, health, and debt, I don't think.
Finished the entire Danish Deception series, and I wanted to weigh in as a European who grew up in Europe. The first thing people need to understand is the distance was a huge factor. If she was living in Europe, or even better in Denmark, she would have caught a lot of the things that he lied about much sooner. Like, she would have found out he doesn't have a property. She would have met his parents sooner. She would have met some of his other friends that he has already scammed out of money. Like, think about you if you're married or in a long-term relationship. It takes time to get to know somebody and everything about them. And if you're not physically there with them, it's much harder. Secondly, he created an environment that makes it very hard not to believe him, with $2,000 a night hotels, taking her shopping and saying, you can buy whatever you want to buy. It'd be much easier to doubt his words if his words didn't match his actions, but they did. Now, here's the part I think would have saved her if she lived in Europe. When he made up the lies that he's gone to the Olympics or that he had a royal title, as a European, I would have Googled the royal title, not because I wanted to verify if what he's saying is true, but because Europeans don't love royal families. Like, we'd Google that shit just to make sure we're not associated with some really dodgy royal family history. We'd be worried about marrying into something really dark. And I think US media particularly pedestals royal families. I mean, look at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and their perception in the US versus their perception in the UK and Europe. So remember their first trip together was in Monaco? A lot of the US media and people also pedestal Monaco, whereas Europeans know that there's not much to do in Monaco. It's so tiny, it's like a weekend getaway and no more than that. Because I think in America it's seen as this luxurious, high-end special place. I don't know. You tell me how you see Monaco if you live in the States. But in Europe, we're kind of like, The other thing I think that's interesting as a European is typically the Scandinavian countries like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and I've dated guys from these countries. They're typically known for going Dutch, aka going 50-50. So that alone would have been quite interesting to a European to go like, really? That guy is not like that? Interesting. That would have been a reason to look up his royal title and his wealth and all that kind of stuff. But how is somebody who's lived in the US their entire life supposed to know any of this? They're not. You can be well-traveled and still not fully understand a lot of those European nuances that Europeans talk about all the time. And I think he took advantage of that. I think he made up some outrageous lies, like the Olympic lie, and he just did that as a test. Like, oh, let me come up with the most ridiculous lie I could possibly do and see how she handles it. If she doesn't question me, doesn't investigate me, that's my sign I've got full freedom. So I'm not going to judge anyone for not seeing red flags before they move in with the person. And this is a great reminder of the risk of falling in love with somebody long distance, because by the time you have fallen in love with somebody and have the chance to truly get to know them, you might be so deep in that any red flags that you see afterwards, your body will just try to reject. And the final thing nobody's considering is that if she didn't live in the US, which has such strict rules about who can live there and who cannot, she wouldn't have married him that quickly. She would have had the opportunity to live with him 1, 2, 3 years to really get to know him and who he is. And then if he is good, then they would have gotten married. And I think she would have found out that he wasn't, and she wouldn't have married him. Like, I know how complicated that is because my fiance is Canadian and I'm European, and we decided to live in Europe instead. And it was very easy for him to just get residency without us getting married. But if I wanted to live in Canada, I think that would have been more complicated, and we may have had to get married much sooner and not have any chance to get to know each other. So consider that.
The Danish deception is proof that everything is in fact about race. This beautiful Nigerian woman was scammed by a white man, a Danish white man. Her being Nigerian is very important because disproportionately across the country, across the globe, Nigerians are associated with fraudulent activity. I bring this particular point up because it is difficult for me to believe that if this man's name was Emeka, if this man's name was even Daryl, that he would have gotten away with the level of lies and deception that he got away with. And that brings me to my point about everything of being about race. For some reason, this man was regarded as more trustworthy. And that calls into question why. Why is this man, this white man, blonde hair, blue eyes, by her description, trustworthy enough for ludicrous things coming out of his mouth to be believed? And some of you may be like, oh, no, I think love is really the main factor here. I would agree with you if when I searched her name and his name, first things that came up weren't those swirl pages that like have that kind of weird note towards swirl. Not just like, oh, love is love, right? And these pages are not just featuring them. These are captions written by her. So she had to submit to these pages, right? There's something to be said about that. There's something to be said about why someone would be able to get away with scamming you and your family to that level, and you trust them. That's not just love. Love is political in and of itself, to be clear. Love is political in and of itself. So who is afforded love, who is afforded trust, who is afforded fidelity is political in and of itself. I'm not about to argue with y'all on that, like read books about it, because that in and of itself is political. And that is what brings me to this particular lens of this topic.
OMG. I just finished watching The Danish Deception and I have thoughts and notes. First of all, it means a lot that her name is Onyeka, but she's calling herself Onyeka. I'm so sorry. Like, there's no amount of Americanism that's going to make you pronounce your whole name incorrectly. Like, it does tell about who you are. I'm not trying to come down on you, but I am saying it infers about who you are as a babe. Number one. Number two. Girl, I have been in a long distance relationship too. And one thing's for sure, two things for certain. My current husband told me he worked for one of the biggest tech companies in the world. You know? And I saw him go to the office every day. I saw him make, vlogs and all these special edition TV shows for his company, etc, etc. But one thing's for sure, two things for certain, until I got to where he lived and looked at him sign into his portal, put on his headset, and talk his talk, I didn't believe him. So for the fact that you went so far as to believe him, to get married to him and didn't tell your parents, nah. Yeah, your man is a scammer. He's funny style, etc, etc, but you two, you're funny style. I don't care. Girls, peep my tea. My man told me he works for one of the biggest tech companies in the world, one that you guys use every day. I saw him. I would see him walk into work. He would take pictures with his badge, all that. I didn't care. At the time I was working for Google, so I said, listen, if he's lying, if he's, setting up a prop, if he's pushing a scheme set up by Todd, I'm going to take myself and get on out. You believed him on top of nothing. All this, I sent him money to send him money, auntie, kilo day. No. One thing that I always push on my page is there is some personal accountability that you need to have as a woman. When a man tells you, oh, baby, I'm so rich, you can be a housewife, you can be anything, and you see his quality of life increasingly declining, know that what he told you was a lie and he's a liar. So you being grown, paying taxes, writing W-2s. I'm not gonna lie. I don't have that sympathy for you. I don't have that empathy for you. I'm not going to lie. Because even me, your man and my man did it the exact same time frame. And one thing's for sure, two things for certain. I was watching that man. He had a LinkedIn. He had video footage of him at his company. He used to take pictures of him at his company. I didn't care. I didn't believe him until I saw him log in his credentials and work a whole 8-hour shift in my face. So, sorry, yo. I don't believe you. Number 3. No shade, no tea. We love the heart wants what it wants. But it gave like you were just like in love with a tall white man. Girl, are we lying? Like, I swear, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm Nigerian. And Nigerian men, they do scam a little. I'm not going to lie. They do love their little scam in 1 and 2. But I don't even feel like he had to scam you that hard. Everything he said, you believe. Everything he said, you believe. You be able to be for real? Onyeka. Stop calling yourself Onika, Onyeki, Onyeka. You're not even gullible. You wanted to believe that stuff. You wanted to. Auntie, am I lying? Like, even just like drop all the steez. You wanted to believe the things he was telling you. You liked the way it looked when you guys would stand next to each other, Abby. It's okay. You've already casted yourself. Just cast yourself to the end. Because a man is an Olympian. A man has a royal family. A man owns all these apartment buildings. Girl, I used to work for Google. It's free. Free 99. It doesn't cost a thing. You played yourself. So, like, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to, allow you put all this stuff on this man. You wanted that man. You wanted what it looked like. You wanted the fairy tale. You wanted it all. I'm sorry. Like, I'm a girl's girl. Like, I don't even want to side with a man, but you wanted what it looked like and you got the end results. Ladies. When a man tells you he can afford this, and all of a sudden, after getting with you, he can afford less and less and less and less and less. What do you think that is? It's all a scheme set up by Todd. And in this big 2025, if you don't have that, inference, that common sense, that deference at this point, shall I dare say, you deserve to get scammed. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Love you, babe. You're so pretty, teasy peasy, too squeezy, but now you do yourself, bidat. He didn't even try hard. Sorry, okay? Okay. Bye, girls.
Not to judge regarding the Danish deception. It's not my style, as Samantha Jones says. But I do have a take. As a therapist, I'm glad she's in therapy now. Great. You obviously have a lot to work through, and you've said you've been working through it in order to share your story with us. And for any survivor of abuse, I think that is an important part, to be able to recount the story. But I do want to give a different point on why it's important to be in therapy before something bad happens or before something blows up. Because I think there's lessons here to be learned regarding identity, acceptance, and like why this validation was needed from this man that you hardly knew. The red flags, the love bombing. Why did you want to believe what you had to know and trust in your gut was untrue? Family relationships and dynamics. Because what do you mean you want to marry someone who doesn't have a relationship with their family and shows no emotions, yet you and your family are really close and you're talking about marriage and children? And you said you sat down with him and had a long conversation in one of these vacations, or like, why are we moving so fast? Yes, love is a hell of a drug, and addiction is even stronger. Scamming and dealing with toxic people, a whole nother layer. But I think we need to look at all those other pieces. And again, I don't know this young lady. I only know what she shared in those 25 parts. And that used to also be their couple's account. So there was some seeking of validation from others with him, a protection even of who he is and of her own image. You know, was it the culture of being a celebrity or wanting to be? I know she spent some time on TV. Shame. There's so much there to unpack. But this is why I say go to therapy. You don't have to just come here when you're spiraling out. Like, for real. Just talk to someone. Because holding all that in and then having the breakdowns and, you know, putting that on your friends when they come to visit you and he's acting out, that's also unhealthy. Taking a trip to Colombia with an engagement, knowing that you just got news that this man scammed your best friends out of like $200,000. I'm sorry, $160,000 at the time in crypto. There's so many layers to this. And being able to identify what's important to you, your core values, identifying red flags in people and like why you were willing to not trust yourself, or better yet, the behaviors they're showing you, that was worth exploring. That was worth exploring. And why protecting his image allowed you to shut out your family and not share what was happening to you. Your very close-knit family that are there based on your stories to support and protect you. So I think, judgment aside, those are the lessons we need to learn from the Danish deception. And happy healing.
Somebody said that she would have never sent him this money if he was black or Nigerian, and that is 1000% true. Because if you are a millionaire, number one, if you are a millionaire and you cannot come up with $6K, you're lying. Number two, go to the bank, get a loan, you're a millionaire. They'll give you that in 6 seconds. Why are you asking me? Not only was she was begging to give this man the 6K. Please take the 6K from me. You didn't know him from Adam and Eve. You just met this man a few weeks ago. I was sick.
I'm trying to be respectful because there was a woman on here who was talking about her engagement, and her fiance was like a totally awful man. And she talked about how he had purchased a multi-million-dollar property in Copenhagen, and then immediately after told her like he had money issues because the property required a bunch of renovations that cost $50,000. And I'm just here to say, like, if you are with an alleged millionaire and the alleged millionaire cannot come up with $50,000, you are not with a millionaire. That's not possible. Because if this is a person who is worth millions of dollars, enough money such that they can buy investment properties for millions of dollars, that means they can qualify for a $50,000 loan. That's what it should mean, at least. And if they can't, they're dealing with something that's probably not legal, or it's all a lie and a scam. I'm excited to hear the rest of her story, but I just wanted to stress that, like, that's not the thing that happens. You don't make millions of dollars. You don't spend $2K on hotels every single night, but then not have $50,000. What is that but a 2-week vacation to that man?
The Danish Deception is an entire story and lesson in what it looks like when somebody is love bombing you, and we can all take a lot of lessons from this entire story or series. If you've not binge watched the entire series, go watch. It's 15 parts. The woman who's telling the story, she's so sweet. I hope she finds healing. Her name is Onika. I binge watched it this morning once I found out about it, and hearing her retell the story, there are so many flags that were waving from the beginning. And I say this as somebody who potentially probably could have fallen for something like this because I had never been in a serious relationship until I met my current husband. I wanted so badly for years to have that romantic experience. And listen, if I was on vacation and this really hot guy, started flirting with me and doing all these extravagant things, I probably would have fell for it too. But when men are doing all of these extravagant things, paying for trips for you, doing all this stuff before you even really know them, that is easily somebody who is love bombing you, who's manipulating you. And if you're somebody who is a kind soul, who wears their heart on their sleeve, it is so easy to get swept up in this without seeing all of the red flags. And then especially having all this happen and then you find yourself falling in love with them. I see how she very much was swept into this situation because you don't want to believe that somebody is intentionally trying to hurt you or scam you. But if we've learned anything from the Tinder swindler, we learned there's a lot of horrible men out there, and Risa Tisa, that take advantage of women with such kind souls and good hearts, and they get swept in this, and they end up potentially having their lives ruined, a lot of money. In this case, she gave that man so much money to the point where I was like, why are you giving this man so much money? But on the other side, I can see when you truly believe someone is not doing you any good and you've got those rose-colored glasses on, that is exactly how they sweep you up into their little story and their little world and whatnot, because you want to see the good in people and you don't want to believe that they're lying to you. But this just goes to show, if you're a woman who wants to date a man and you are met with a man who's basically like pulling out all these stops and essentially is like doing all the things where you're saying this is too good to be true, guess what? It is too good to be true. And I remember when she said the first time she like touched his leg or something, she felt like that electricity. Anytime your body feels that like electricity, crazy spark, that is your body's way of telling you this is not a good situation. Because every time I've experienced that like intense, oh my God, this is so exciting, before I met my husband when I was dating in the scene, it always crashed and burned. It always crashed and burned. And when you are dating someone and looking for a life partner, it should feel very safe. Sometimes almost boring. It should feel very calm. It should feel very collected. The whole time I was listening to her story, I was like, girl, there's so many red flags waving, because how are you a millionaire or supposedly making all this money? You were in the Olympics, you had all these investments, and then you're asking me for money. Upwards of, at the end, I think she ended up giving that man $200,000. Then come to find out, she had one of her friends, the husband, let him $200,000. So not only did he con you, he conned someone else who was close to you. Like, the whole story is crazy, and I really hope she's able to find healing. But let this all be a lesson to anyone who's watched it. Please go down the rabbit hole. It's has me on my seat. I hope, girl, I hope you get your bag, and I hope somebody writes a story about this, because the whole thing is crazy. It basically just reminded me of the Tinder swindler and how there are so many manipulative men out there who take advantage of good women with kind hearts. And like I said, I feel like I probably could have fallen for something like this before I really got in a good mindset and started believing that I deserve to be loved in a right way. I would have been swept off my feet probably many years ago and been swept up in something like this before I realized, like, that's not normal. These are so many red flags. So do yourself a favor, watch the story, but also please take the lessons, guys. If it's too good to be true, if it feels too good to be true, if this man is telling you all these things, guess what? He's probably love bombing you, and he's probably manipulating you. And real relationships, healthy relationships, do not have that. And how come every time she picked up the phone, he's like, I'm having a horrible day? That is not normal.
I've just watched the Danish Deception story, and I have so many questions. Okay? Like, I'm surprised, but I'm also not surprised. Do you get what I mean? Like, I knew where the story was going from, like, part 4. Do you get what I mean? Like, there were so many red flags in this story, and I really do believe that the reason why he was able to get away with what he got away with was because he was from Denmark. Yeah, I believe that his white privilege, as well as his pretty privilege, is what awarded him the audacity to actually ask for money from all of these people, and they just like willingly gave it to him with no question, with no investigation. Do you know what I mean? The craziest part of the story to me is her giving her passport information to somebody she barely even knew. Like, she didn't even have his phone number. Like, who does that? Like, honestly, who does that? And like, every single time, it just keeps coming back to me like, babe, you are Nigerian. You should have known better. You should have known better. Like, there's just so many things that don't add up. Like, I know that we're supposed to be feeling sorry for her. I understand that victim blaming is a thing, but I genuinely believe that we're not getting the full story here. I really think more happened. And I think that this is just the version of the story that she's comfortable with. Okay? Like, we still get to the point, but I know that her friends probably told her. That many friends involved, I know that there were friends who probably told her the truth, who probably told her to be careful. That friend who went with her on holiday, right? We never heard about her again. Remember, she was uncomfortable. She was uncomfortable with how excited and desperate she was. But she obliged because she's a good friend. This is what I mean. I know there's more to the story. I just know.
I also believe that the entire story around him being a gambler and having a gambling addiction, I believe that that was all made up. I think that was part of the scam. I feel like she was so enthralled and so invested in being chosen, in being the type of girl that wasn't with him for his money. Like, she really wanted to prove that so bad, even though she was. Let's be honest, right? I think that she just wanted it so bad that she couldn't see that that was also part of the scam. Because it's the perfect cover-up, of course. Like, if you can't pay the money back, then you just say you have a gambling addiction and you've gambled it all away. Then no one expects you to pay it back. It's actually quite genius, actually. But yeah, man, I just feel like there are so many holes in this story, even in the way that she's told the story. Do you get what I mean? Like, even the bit where she's talking about the hooker and she's saying that that the girl looked like a hooker and blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I just feel like, was that part of the story necessary? What did it add? This is what I mean. Like, you've got to watch these little clues. Do you get what I mean? I just feel like there's more to the story, guys. There's more to the story. She was just so easily invested. And let's be for real, she went after him. And to this day is not really taking responsibility for her part. Like, she kind of handed it to him on a platter. Like, she made it so easy for him. Like, yes, I feel bad. I feel like she was groomed, but then I struggle with that because I'm like, you went after him. Do you know what I mean? Like she hid the marriage from her family because she knew that this was crazy. She knew that they were in financial ruin, and then they still kept going on the trips. Make it make sense. Like, I don't know. This is what I'm saying. I struggle, like, morally, I struggle with it because I want to feel sorry for her, but at the same time, it's like, you did this to yourself, babe. Like you were the perfect mark. The perfect mark. And I just don't understand because I'm like, as a Nigerian, he borrowed money from all of your family and nobody brought it up. Nobody said anything. Like, if my husband took money from my mum, she would definitely mention it, surprise or not. She's gonna say something to me, like, just so you're aware, like, I gave him a little something. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, like, so many questions, man, so many questions, but it's good that she's finally divorced him, but I just want to know, like, how much is the debt really? Because I know that there was more. I just know there's more to the story. I just know. But yeah, let this be a lesson, man. Let this be a lesson to never, ever, ever in your life give money to a man. Because a Nigerian babe would never. But after hearing this story, who flipping knows?
So this Danish deception situation has been all over my For You page, and my interest was officially piqued. So I decided to go to this girl's profile and see what was going on. Number one, I saw that there's over 20 parts to the story, and there is no way in hell that I am watching all of that. But number two, and more importantly, / alarmingly, I saw that this girl is Nigerian. And there must be more than one Nigeria in this world, because there is absolutely no way. And I've already seen a couple of posts of people joking, saying, well, typically it's the Nigerian that's the scam artist, and in this case it was the Nigerian getting scammed. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about culturally. If you are a woman born to Nigerian parents and you're in your right mind, there's absolutely no way you are loaning a man money. And I'm Yoruba, I'm not Igbo, and I think Onyeka is Igbo, it's an Igbo name. But she needs to answer for this. And in fact, her parents need to answer for this. I am 25 years old. My parents would genuinely slap me upside the head if they found out I had done this. I would be cut out of the will. I would be cut out of the family. I already know that some of y'all might be hearing what I'm saying and thinking that I'm saying that Nigerians are too smart to get scammed. That is not what I'm saying at all. I am saying that culturally, the thought of a woman sending money to a man that's not even her husband, that she hasn't even known for any significant amount of time, makes absolutely no sense from a Nigerian culture perspective. It makes none. To the point that I don't believe her. There is something she is not telling us. Because culturally, this makes no sense. And unfortunately, I don't have the time nor the desire to watch 20 plus parts of her talking about what allegedly happened. So I guess I'm going to have to watch a summary video somewhere.